You know, the Renaissance, it wasn't just some spontaneous burst of genius. Nope. It was a project, a very calculated one. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the family that pretty much engineered the whole thing, the Medici. Okay, so when I say Renaissance, what pops into your head? I bet it's incredible art, right? You're thinking of names like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli, this massive cultural explosion that literally changed the world. But have you ever stopped to think about who footed the bill for all of it? I mean, genius is great, but it needs a patron. Revolutions, even cultural ones, need funding. Well, the answer to that question, it's a story that absolutely changed the world. And it all kicks off with one single family, the Medici. All right, let's get into it. Okay, first up, let's talk about the money. Who was really powering this whole thing from behind the scenes? So to get a sense of the kind of money we're talking about, let's just fast forward to today for a second. In 2017, a single painting by Da Vinci sold for $450 million. That's insane, right? And that incredible value, it's a direct echo of the cultural shift that started all those centuries ago. A shift that, you guessed it, needed a ton of cash. You know, it's so easy to just focus on the artists themselves. And don't get me wrong, their talent was off the charts. But talent alone doesn't cut it. The real game changers here, the people who actually created the environment for this art to even happen, were the patrons. And when it comes to patrons, nobody, and I mean nobody, was more important than the Medici. So you're probably wondering, how on earth did one family get rich enough to bankroll an entire era? Well, it all started with what was basically a revolutionary money-making machine. So the Medici Bank, this wasn't just some bank. This thing was the financial powerhouse of 15th century Europe. We're talking branches everywhere. London, Bruges, all over the place. They pioneered these incredible credit systems that supercharged international trade and turned their home city of Florence into a global hub. This wasn't just a business, you see. It was the bedrock of their political power. It was the fuel for everything that came next. All right, with the money machine in place, let's meet the guy who really ran the show, the architect of the whole Medici dynasty, Cosimo de' Medici. And let me tell you, this guy was a master of a totally different kind of art, the art of power. Cosimo basically created the playbook for how to rule without actually being the ruler. It was a four-step plan, really. Step 1, he unified his own family, turned them into this solid political unit. Step 2, and this is brilliant, he made his allies honorary family members. That created some serious loyalty. Step 3, he almost never held an official job himself. Instead, he just pulled the strings from behind the scenes, making sure his people were in all the important government spots. And finally, step 4, he got the regular folks on his side. The lower classes saw him as their guy. So this whole strategy gets put to the test in 1433. His rivals, the Albizzi family, managed to get him exiled. They're probably thinking, yes, we won. But not so fast. Turns out Cosimo's financial influence and his popularity were so massive that the city of Florence pretty much ground to a halt without him. And get this, within a single year, they were begging him to come back. He returns a hero and basically rules Florence for the next 30 years. What a comeback. Okay, so now he's got all this power. What does he do? He starts spending that bank money. But here's the key. This was not just about buying nice art to hang on the wall. For the Medici, patronage was a tool. It was an instrument of power. Think about it. Every single coin they spent on art was a strategic move. For one, it boosted their social status. It took them from just being rich bankers to being seen as cultural elites. It also made Florence beautiful, which was great PR, basically linking the Medici name with good times. But maybe the smartest reason was this. The church had a big problem with banking. They called it usury, and it was considered a sin. So what does Cosimo do? He pours money into building churches and commissioning religious art. It was like public penance, a way to clean his money and turn a potential weakness into a major strength. And the philosophy they decided to back? It was this radical new idea called humanism. Now, this was a huge deal. It was a massive shift from the old medieval way of thinking, which was all about God and the afterlife. Humanism was all about celebrating what humans could achieve, right here, right now. And you can totally see why a family of self-made bankers would love this, right? It basically said, hey, your success in this world matters. It put the focus on human achievement, not just divine fate. And this is a perfect example of their strategy in action. They weren't just buying paintings. Cosimo funded the first public library in all of Europe. Just let that sink in for a moment. He was making knowledge available to people. It was a power move. This went way beyond art. This was about shaping how people thought, controlling the culture, and making sure that when people thought of progress and enlightenment, they thought of the name Medici. All right, so Cosimo laid all this incredible groundwork. But now let's jump forward a generation to his grandson, Lorenzo, because if Cosimo was the architect, Lorenzo was about to become the public face of the entire Renaissance. And the difference between these two is just fascinating. You've got Cosimo, the tough, practical banker who pulled all the strings from the shadows. Then you have his grandson, Lorenzo. They called him Lorenzo the Magnificent, and he was the total opposite. He was a poet, he was out in the open, a public figure. He didn't get a business education, he got a classical humanist one. You can see the family itself is changing, right? They're going from being the money behind the Renaissance to being its biggest stars. And that's the real key here. Lorenzo didn't just write checks for the Renaissance, he was the Renaissance. He was the living, breathing embodiment of that Renaissance man ideal, a politician, a scholar, an art lover, and an artist himself. I mean, his influence was everywhere. He was the guy sponsoring masters like Michelangelo and Botticelli. He was funding the big thinkers at the Platonic Academy. But he wasn't just sitting back and watching. No way. He got his hands dirty getting involved in architectural plans. He even wrote his own poetry, promoting the local language. He was the real deal. So at the end of the day, after generations of smart, expensive, and really personal investment, the Medici did something incredible. They turned their city, Florence, into the undisputed cultural capital of Europe. It was a beacon, drawing in the best and brightest from all over the continent. And all of this leaves us with one big, fascinating question to chew on. The story of the Medici shows this super tight link between money, power, and art. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Does great culture always need great wealth to get off the ground? The Renaissance definitely gives us one very powerful answer. Thanks for diving into this with me.